I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm here with Fireside. There is nothing quite like wrapping yourself in a soft, yummy blanket on a cold winter's day, like today. Hi, Jessica Meyrowitz with ItsAYummy. Tell us what you do.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me. And I agree with you. There is nothing quite like a yummy throw on a cold winter's day.
Yes, and you made that yourself.
I did. This is part of what we do at my company. We are a hand knit knitwear company. We sell my yummy yarn like this,
Mm.
and we sell knitting needles. We sell finished products like this throw and baby blankets and hats and scarves and wraps and pillows and lots of different products. I also sell do-it-yourself knitting kits. And in addition to all of that, I teach mindful knitting workshops. I teach them at spas and resorts and corporations around the country. And since the time of COVID, I've been teaching those workshops online. I teach them virtually through Zoom, and I teach them to people all over the country, as well as still corporations, where we use it for team building, for trying something new, for camaraderie, however people want to use them.
And I've got a couple comments. First, these are so popular that you have been on quite a few media outlets.
Yes, I've been so fortunate that our yummy throws and various products have been so well received. My knitting kits actually debuted on the Today Show, and I've been on Home and Family on the Hallmark Channel and Country Living Magazine and Traditional Home Magazine, American Spa Magazine, and a number of other publications and media outlets. So we've been very, very fortunate. And we have something coming up with you as well very soon.
On iHeartRadio, yes.
Yes.
And what I loved when we talked to you before, what I love, first of all, it's soft, right?
Yes, it is super, super soft and yummy. That was really my intention when I started the company. Was I said it has to be so soft and delicious and yummy that when you touch it, you just want to melt into it. It's really about cozy and warmth and all of that.
And the other thing that I absolutely love is I can see the knitting needles.
Me too. Me too. I hear you with that. There's nothing quite like being able to see your stitches and your needles and not having to put on the reading glasses. So I hear you with that one.
So I tried knitting long ago, and of course, I wasn't that good at it. But with this, I could give it another try. And the other thing I want to say is that an old Weight Watchers trick, which I've been in and out of my whole life, is if you're sitting in front of the TV and you want to eat, knit instead. Keep your hands busy knitting.
Totally, totally agree with you. If your hands are busy knitting, they're not busy reaching into the snacks. So I agree. It is definitely a great way to multitask and keep your hands busy.
Right, and make something beautiful at the end too.
Exactly. You could be creative and you could be mindful and practical.
Right, exactly. So you have a course and you have finished products that people can buy
Yes.
online. So who are your customers?
So my customers really are all different types of people. They're experienced knitters who want to try something new and different and kind of novel and fun. They are new knitters who've never knit before, because it's very easy to see your stitches and to learn to knit with the big yarn and big needles. But really, most importantly with that is that it goes very quickly. So because it goes quickly with the big yarn and the big needles, you have a great sense of accomplishment. You can start a project and finish a project in an hour. So that'll encourage you to keep going with it. Because a lot of times, I think when anybody starts something new, when you don't get that satisfaction of completion right away, sometimes it's hard to have that stick with itness. But
Yeah,
I think because of this, you finish and it encourages you to continue.
absolutely. Where do you get your yarn?
Well, my yarn is manufactured for me, for ItsAYummy. So it is our yarn. So that's where it comes from. It's our yummy yarn.
Nice. And is it from sheep? Is it wool?
Yes. So all our yarn is from sheep. It's from merino sheep. It's merino wool. It's 100% merino wool, and it's pretty fabulous. I wish I could sort of send it through the computer screen to you so you can feel the softness of it.
It looks soft. So, how many people take a class typically?
Well, it really varies. It depends if I'm doing it in person or if I'm doing it over Zoom. When I do my classes in person, they're a little bit larger than my classes over Zoom. And the reason why my classes are smaller over Zoom, to go back to our reading glasses
Right.
thing, is that, the more people that you have over Zoom, the smaller the squares get. So when they get a little too small, it becomes a little hard for me to see people's hands. And I need to see people's hands as I'm instructing them to knit online. So I keep my classes over Zoom very small, smaller than my in-person classes. But they're still enough, they're large enough that there's still a lot of camaraderie when we're knitting together, and there's socializing and learning of a new skill, and really a feeling of community, because I think that's something that's really missing now during this time of COVID. And one of the things that I actually started doing during this time because of that is I started moving my in-person knitting circles that I used to do to virtual knitting circles. And I hold them once a month. They're free. I do them over Zoom, and I encourage knitters and crocheters and anybody who loves any form of creative arts and yarn and all that to come, and we get together and we're able to socialize and talk about a project that we're working on or want to be working on. And it's a really wonderful way to have that feeling of connection that I think is a really difficult thing to find right now.
It is. So, when you give your in-person classes again,
Yes,
where do you give them? All over the country or just in the Northeast
I
or
do. So I do in person all over the New York area, the Northeast area, but then I also travel all over the country. I go to spas around the country like Golden Door and Canyon Ranch and Rancho La Porta and Red Mountain Resort and Ocean House and Lodge at Woodlock. And I've been all over. I've been fortunate enough that they invite me to come there and teach their guests how to knit, because knitting is truly mindful and meditative and creative. And it really goes hand in hand perfectly with a spa lifestyle.
absolutely. So, that's wonderful. Just going to ask you something else. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Well, I know you were asking me earlier about my types of customers, and I had mentioned that I have experienced knitters and novice knitters. And one of the things that's really important, to break it down even further, I find that there's two types of knitters. There's a process knitter and there's a project knitter. A process knitter is somebody who loves, like I'm doing right now, the act of knitting. They find it relaxing. They love keeping their hands busy. They can do it while they're doing other things. They love crafting something. They just enjoy the motion of it. The project knitter is somebody who loves what they've created, and they love gifting it to themselves or gifting it to somebody else. And I find that a lot of times it's hard to be both, because it takes a very long time to complete something with knitting, and then that might be your goal, or maybe you just enjoy the act of it. I find with my yarn, because it's oversized, and my needles because they're oversized, you really get to be both. You get to enjoy the process, and in an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, 3 hours to do the throw, you've completed a project. So you really get that satisfaction of having finished something and created it. And so you could be a process knitter and enjoy it, and you could be a project knitter. So I feel very fortunate that I'm able to speak to both of those types of knitters as well, whether they're novice or experienced knitters.
I know what I was going to ask you. So, we associate knitting with women, of course. You
Yes,
have men that are knitters?
I do. I have to tell you, about 25% to 40% of my classes are men. I actually had at one of my classes last November, right before, not this November of 2020, but of 2019. I had a couple who came to one of my workshops that I was doing in Rhode Island, and they ended up knitting together. I taught them both to knit, and they knit all of their holiday presents for everyone that year, the skills that they learned in the workshop. So it was really awesome. It is not just for women, it's for anyone who wants to be creative and crafty. And I call knitting truly forced meditation. And the reason why I say forced meditation is because when you go to meditate regularly, you have to think about, you're trying to empty your mind, you're focusing. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to worry about how you're breathing, if your eyes are open, if your eyes are closed, if you have a mantra, if you don't. You just have to do the knitting. And just by knitting, it slows your breathing, it focuses your mind, it calms your heart rate. It does so many benefits that that are beyond, that come just from the act of knitting. And I teach a lot of children, and I also go into underserved communities, and I teach to knit there because a lot of them haven't been exposed to a lot of my yarn or knitting or art classes in schools or anything like that. So I go into schools, I go into community centers just to show the benefits of knitting. A lot of times when I'll go in to teach a class of children, I'll teach their parents or their caretakers after. So that's something that they can then continue at home. And it's so satisfying to me to see all these new knitters who maybe wouldn't have thought of themselves as knitters. I remember I taught in a classroom in February of 2020, right before everything got shut down. I was teaching a 5th grade class, and the teacher told me after that the students, after the week of knitting instruction was done, they would raise their hand and they would say, I need to take a little knitting break. I need to go and do my knitting, because they realized it was so relaxing and helped them focus and calm them down. And that was boys, girls, everyone really had the same benefits, because it's really about wellness and mindfulness and creativity. And those are things for anyone,
You know,
boys, girls, and everybody in between.
yeah, I never would have associated those before, but I get it now. And especially when you're handling something really soft like that. So you have the visual, you have the feel, you can, what does it smell like? Does it
Yummy.
have the
It
smell?
smells like yummy.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't smell like anything. And
Okay.
or maybe since I've been holding it, it smells like my hand lotion. It might smell a little bit like that. So maybe a little bit like roses right now. But
So it
it
doesn't
doesn't
smell
really.
like an animal. It doesn't smell like
No, 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 no. My yarn, my wool is cleaned and processed so many times
okay.
because we really want it to be as pristine as possible.
So
So it doesn't smell like that. Though I have to say, when I was starting the company, I would go and I would volunteer on sheep farms because I really wanted to learn as much as I could about sheep and yarn and wool and immerse myself into that community. So that way, I really feel with any business, you have to have product knowledge
mhm,
and you have to have passion. And the
mhm.
only way that you get both of those is from being hands on in every aspect. I always feel that and this is now my third business, but I feel like you have to be able to do everything that's involved, and you have to know about your supply chain. You have to know about everything. Not that you have to do it all the time, because you gotta delegate a little bit, but you have to know what you're talking about and you have to feel it. And when you have that knowledge, that's really where passion comes from. When you have that base of product knowledge, you're passionate about it because you can speak about it. You know what it feels like in your hands and in your mind, and you've experienced it. So that's what I did when I was starting this. There I was on the sheep farms. I was picking garbage out of the fleeces, and that I can tell you smelled like an animal. That was a little bit different than this. So
So
you really got the scent there.
yeah. So can you dye it any color? I see you have a beautiful purple there. Can you hold that up a little?
Yes.
We'll see what you've been doing while we've been
So this
talking.
is what I've been doing. So you can see this is multicolored, but
Right.
my yarn, if I'm going to show you, so you can see I'm starting a scarf,
Okay.
goes with the top. So here's what I've been doing. So my colors are based in white, and then they're feathered or glazed with color.
Okay.
So all of my colors, and I have over 50 different colors of yarn, they're all manufactured the same way. And they all look the same way. I wanted my yarn to look very rustic.
Hmm.
Some spun larger, tighter, looser, all the same kind of look to it. I really like, as you can see here, that kind of rustic farmhouse, um, cozy,
Yeah.
comfy.
I
Like
can
I really
almost,
wanted it to be like that feeling of warmth
yeah,
and
I can
home. And
almost
that's
smell the
really
warm.
all my products.
Yeah, I can almost smell the warm apple pie while we're sitting talking, right?
Are you in my house? Can you smell what I'm cooking in the oven? No, I'm not an apple pie cooker, but I am a chocolate chip cookie cooker. That I can do much easier than the apple pie. Apple pie is a little too beyond my skill set, but not the chocolate chip cookies I can do as long as I'm sneaking a couple of chocolate chips in between the knitting.
That's cute. Yeah, so it does look really comfy and cozy. And do you
Thank
find
you.
that it's seasonal? Do you get people during the summer too, or?
I do because I have products that are summer. I have summertime wraps, I have belts, and my home goods, whether it's a baby blanket, a pillow, a throw, those are seasonless. Those are any time of the year. I mean, one of my throws was in the Hampton Show House a couple of years back, and that was in the summer. They have it out in the Hamptons in the summer. So it's about texture. Do you want to add some texture to your room? And I work with so many decorators that people are redecorating all the time. So those products are seasonless. Obviously, scarves and hats. People aren't wearing these in the summer, but these are perfect for the winter. And then I find when I teach year round. Those classes really transfer to any time of the year
Mhm.
because it, learning a new skill is seasonless. It's timeless. You know, you're never too old, you're never too young, you're never too anywhere in between to learn something new and to have fun. That's really, I mean, I really feel like one of the things with my classes, in addition to learning something and creating something and being wellness focused, it's about fun and entertainment. I want people to come out. If you never want to knit again, at least you had a good time for that hour. We're going to laugh, we're going to chit chat, and we're going to all get to know each other. And that's really a lot of what my class is about as well.
That
And
sounds like fun.
yeah, and I have
Yeah.
to say, one of the things that I really feel fortunate about is from going to these spas so often, they've heard my story and how my business was formed and how I reinvented myself a handful of years ago at this middle-ish point in my life. And now I've been able to do a lot of speaking engagements at the spas and then also around different events and be on panels where I talk about you're never too old to reinvent yourself. You're never too old to try something new. And I talk about my journey and how it's important to take chances and to keep learning and keep trying. And that's part of what I've been able to do as well, which is sort of an extension of It's Yummy.
Absolutely. It sounds wonderful. If I couldn't knit
Yes.
because I whatever, okay, or I just didn't have the patience or whatever, but I wanted, say, a pink baby blanket. Could I find it on your site? If it wasn't there, could I get you to make it for me?
Yes. So on my site, you could go on, you would go under the baby blankets section of itsayummy.com. So ItsAYummy.com. You would go on there, and then you go to the baby blanket section, and then you could pick of 50 different colors that you could have the baby blanket in. And we have so many shades of pink: hot pink, light pink, baby pink in the middle, rose, all different shades. But then also, what I do, which is a lot of fun, I do custom. So I do a lot of custom orders. So I had somebody call me once. The baby's name was Violet. So I made a baby blanket in a shade of violet. There
Oh,
was another baby whose middle name was Ocean. And I made up a color that to me looked like the ocean. And that's what we did. And I love that color so much. Actually, it became part of my line. I put it in as one of my colors. And I always do a lot of custom. So sometimes I'll say, well, what's the room look like? Or what's the person like? Or and I love to do that to really make something personal. It's
mhm.
really that's exciting for me.
Can you knit in different shapes? Like, what if I wanted a giraffe-shaped baby blanket? Could you do something like that?
I could. I think I would give it my best shot. It might take me because I don't follow a pattern when I knit, even
Right.
though I create patterns for other people to recreate what I've done. I am more of a trial and error knitter. So when I'm making a pattern, I will experiment and then I'll be like, okay, well, I started with this many stitches and no, and I went to this many and I'll just keep pulling it apart till I figured out the pattern. Then I write the pattern and I share it with other people, but I would give that giraffe my best shot and I would give it an attempt and I could tell you it might be giraffe-ish, but it may not be giraffe, but we would be ish. We would be in the ish stratosphere of the giraffe. It would be an interpretive form of giraffe. It's what it would be.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a knitted giraffe blanket. So,
Well, then good. There's no standard. I will set the bar. I will set it nice and low so someone else can raise it. But
well,
I'm glad I don't have to meet any measurement on that.
yeah, I'm not quite ready for it yet. My son's getting married in May, so maybe a year or so, year and a half from now, maybe.
That'll give me plenty of time to practice the pattern.
Yeah, that's kind of a goofy thought, but um, so really, what do you think is the main selling point of your products? I think your class is the meditation and community aspect. What do you think for people that have received your products? What kind of feedback have you gotten?
People love it because it's handmade. It's there's something to be said for something made by hand, but
Mhm.
also something to be said when you experience and know or feel familiar with the maker. And I think that that's also really important because people who are buying the product kind of get a feel for my aesthetic and I because I've been fortunate enough to have be the face of the company and be out there, they kind of have an idea what we're about. And I think that's really important. When I a lot of times buy from a company or a small business, you're really buying from an individual. You're buying from somebody who had a dream and had an idea, and you, the consumer, are helping to support that. And that's really like a magical experience to be able to help somebody's dream by purchasing something and knowing the story and knowing that they made it specifically for you. I think
Mhm.
there's really something to that. And whether it's my classes or people who buy finished products from me or decorators or consumers or people who anywhere that I've met, I want them to know like you're helping this business. You're a part of this business. And I try to be accessible. People email me or call me with questions and I want to be there to help and to answer. And because I feel like I'm so grateful for their not only trying me out, but their loyalty to come back and purchase from me again, or to take another class with me, or to be there for me on the journey, or even with social media, to like something, to follow. All of that helps the small business. By just being a part of it, you're really helping somebody's dreams come true. And I think that that is something really incredible. So I hope that my customers feel with when they get something from me, how truly thankful, appreciative, and grateful I am that they are along this they're on this journey with me, and allowing me to have this journey. So I really feel like that's what I hope they get from my products. And I hope it looks nice in their house or on them. And I hope they enjoy wearing it. And I have to tell you, I love when my customers tell me, "Ah, I got so many compliments on this. I loved it." I actually had somebody send me pictures of some of my wraps that were in a store out in Long Island. And she said, as soon as I walked in, I recognized it. I knew that it was you. I knew that that was your product. So I love that they feel like, oh my God, I'm going to send this to Jessica. This is great. I'm excited as the consumer that I see her products because I feel like I'm a part of it. All of that means so much. And it's really, for me, a joy about having a business where you can meet people and be a part of their lives and in their home, and then be a part of my lives and in my home.
And make something that's really beautiful too. That is very beautiful throw behind you there.
Thank you. This was actually how the company got started, with this throw. My company got started. I never set out to start a company. I set out to make a blanket. That is the truth. I had taken a knitting class. I was looking for something to knit. I came across what's called extreme knitting, which is knitting with large needles and large yarn. I loved the look of it, and I wanted to make a blanket. I wanted to make this yummy throw. And after I made it, I got so many compliments on it. I said, I think I got something here. And that's really how the company got started, was from one thing, one idea, doing something that I felt passionate about. And it's resonated. And I feel very, very thankful for that.
Yes, passionate enough to go out to a sheep farm.
That, let me tell you, that's passion. I put on my boots. I had my rain boots on because it's a little muddy. And I have to tell you, I got very, timing wise, was worked out because I took my first knitting class January 4th of 2016. I LLC'd myself February 4th of 2016. And around that time in the Hudson Valley is sheep shearing time at the end of February into March. So there's not that many. Here's a little known tidbit. There's not that many sheep shearers around, and they travel the world. And it happened to be the time that they were coming to shear in the Hudson Valley, which was perfect because I wanted to know, how is that process? What was done? I spoke to sheep shearers. I went to volunteer on the farm. It was, timing really was fortuitous. I got very, very, able to go to both start my company and get the background that I needed. And so I would go to the farms. I put on my rain boots. I would get all ready. And there I was on my hands and knees. And we would be picking out sheep parts and sheep farm from the wool that was sheared. But I wanted to see, how are the animals treated when they're sheared? What is it like? I felt like I can't start a company unless I know everything there is to know. So I didn't even start writing patterns or finalize my mill until May of 2016, because I wanted to go through all of that process to really build my product knowledge, to really be able to speak from a place of knowledge.
And did you feel the sheep were humanely raised?
I did. I did. And I mean, they each had a name on the farms where I volunteered. So I got to see this one and that one. And I actually have some adorable pictures of a chicken that was living on a sheep's back because the animals were all together. And they were actually, to me, I'm not a sheep, I can't swear to it, but they seemed happy once the wool was sheared from them, because it's heavy, it's warm. And when it starts to get warm in March, that's like wearing a heavy winter coat. You don't want it on you. So they would be sheared, and I, before pictures, after pictured, when they were getting sheared, they were very calm in the shearer's arms. So it was fascinating to see, and I'm glad that I did that. and that I got to experience that, and just to see the process from literally, they say farm to table. I like to say farm to sofa. So I got to see the process of farm to sofa with my throw, because I really got to see the whole way that it happens. And it helps me now also. So when I'm speaking to my mill, I know, well, when something comes in or what it needs to be do, or that fact that I want everything clean 3 times or whatever, or processed extra, whatever it is, because I know where it's coming from and where it's going. And I really value that I was able to have those experiences, and that I lived in an area where I could have those experiences. Drive 2 hours north, and there I was. I was immersed in it.
Wow, that is amazing to me. That's a very cool story. And I think that to me, that's a selling point that the sheep are happy because you're not taking something from an animal that's unhappy. And I think that, it kind of gets into the fur. I don't know.
Exactly. And this isn't taking their fur. This is a haircut.
Right,
This
right.
is like when you're shaving your head before for the summertime because it's warm, or you're getting your hair trimmed. It's a haircut. So it's not taking the fur that way.
Right, right. It's
You
not
know,
getting them down to
the
the
sheep's hair's growing back.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, if they don't want it that short, if they like it a little bit longer, their hair will grow back. When you've had a haircut, you're like, it's a little too short, or I cut bangs. I'm not thrilled with the bangs. It'll grow back. It's not permanent. Whereas a fur is a different situation.
Yeah, well, I imagine they are much more comfortable in the summer in the Hudson Valley. It
I,
gets
I
pretty
used to
hot.
equate it. I have 2 sons, and I used to shave their heads in the summer. I'm like, it's the same kind of thing. We're taking the hair down for the summer. It's
Yeah,
easier that way.
yeah. So this sounds wonderful. Boy, I don't think there's anyone else like you doing exactly this anywhere. I mean, I most yarn I've ever seen, you go into a store and it's there and it came from some machine somewhere, right? So,
Well, I have to say, there are people doing very artisan based yarns and artistic yarns. There are, it's out there. And again, I feel, again, because I've had that experience, because I've been immersed in this world, I'm able to see that. So when I do my knitting circle, and I'll share the tip with you. So I like to give a tip because I've been to so many different places and farms, and speaking to different yarn dyers and yarn spinners and all different things, because there is a whole wonderful community that I hope that they consider me a part of, because I certainly consider myself a part of them. One thing I'll give your viewers a tip that I love: there's a type of yarn, it's not big yarn like this, and it's not by a manufacturer, but it's a type of yarn. So my yarn is merino wool. I've come across something else. It can't be made into large yarn like this, but I like it if you're going to be knitting with small yarn. That kind of wool is called Cormo, Cormo, which I never would have known existed before, but that's smaller. And I do like that. So it's not a particular manufacturer. There's many types of manufacturers that do that. But I always like to give a plug to a different type of sheep, even though obviously I love merino, and I love merino because it's durable and it holds up nicely when you spin it large like this, and it's super soft, and the staple is long enough to give that good durability, and I love it. That's my preference. But I always like to give a plug to somebody else out there who's doing cormo. So I think that's a really nice wool too.
well, I will have to tell my daughter. So she
Oh, definitely. I tell everybody, I'm like, you should experience it. There's not that much of it out there, but when you come across it, to me, it's fabulous. I love it as much as I love my merino. Maybe I love my merino a little bit more,
yeah.
but I love the Cormo. So I always try to. That's the other thing. Whenever I'm teaching, or I'm running a knitting circle, or I'm someplace in person, I try to give people something, a little piece of information
Mhm.
that they maybe wouldn't have had before. And hopefully there's a knitter out there watching, and I just gave you a good tidbit. Go look for some Cormo yarn.
Awesome. Great. Well,
Yeah, I
is
think it's
there,
always important to be a resource.
yes. Is there anything else that you want to say about your company or anything?
Well, and the other part that I feel very grateful for is that I get to meet people like you and so many different people out there who maybe not necessarily are customers of It's a Yummy, which is fine, but giving me access to other customers of It's Yummy. I'm so grateful for you hosting me on your iHeartRadio show, as well as here on Fireside. I'm just so, so grateful. And it's been my pleasure to get to know you, to meet you, to spend this time with you, and to hear how you started your business and the opportunities that you're giving to business people out there, whether it's through Passage to Profit on iHeartRadio or through Fireside. I'm grateful for you featuring me and helping me grow my business. And I'm very, very appreciative. So thank you.
Well, and I am absolutely delighted to meet you and talk with you. You're
Thanks.
amazing. Your company's amazing.
Thank you.
It's something I could probably actually do with the huge needles myself.
I'm
But
telling you, you can do it. I have people come all the time in class. They're like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, in an hour, you're going to be a knitter. We're going to all be knitters in an hour. You'll be a knitter. You have to come take one of my classes. You will be a knitter in an hour.
I will. I think I will because it sounds like so much fun.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I hope that you'll leave and say, maybe I'm a knitter. That would be great. But if you could leave and say, I had a fun time, I really enjoyed it, that would be the best.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. This was fun.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.